This is TransportBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Welcome to TransportBT, a podcast of BT correspondents. I'm your host, correspondent Derryn Wong. Now, every week, my colleagues and I break down a business story that matters. And what matters this episode is caring and sharing. Okay, you can write me hate mail later for that pun. But earlier in August, car sharing provider BlueSG announced a strategic pause to regroup and relaunch its service next year. And I spoke to industry experts about this, and what stood out to me was the contrast and the mixed reactions between them. Some were very bullish about this, but others were downright negative about its future. So where is car sharing going? Is it a case of the specific business model of BlueSG not working, or is it that car sharing itself is a hard slog in Singapore? I have what must be a true car sharing optimist to talk about that. With us today, it's Ting Feng, the CEO of car sharing platform GetGo. Ting Feng, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me on, Derryn.
For those people who are not familiar with you or the business, give them the 30-second intro.
Yeah, happy to. GetGo is currently Singapore's largest car sharing service. We were launched in 2021. So in the 4+ years since then, we have grown pretty substantially. We have over 3,000 cars on our platform across 1,700 locations. And currently, we have a community of registered users of close to 500,000 users.
So quite a stratospheric rise for you guys. We'll get to that later. So first, the whole BlueSG thing now, the problems that it's had, they don't actually sound new. A lot of people have tried car sharing, and not small companies either. You had Honda trying it. We had NTUC founding one of the first car co-ops here in the early days. We had Smove in 2021. But obviously, you guys seem to be doing something right. How has GetGo done it differently?
That's a great question. I think the first maybe clarification to make is that, in car sharing, there are two principal models of operation. That's what we call a point A to A model, which is the one that we operate. And there's a point A to B model, which is the one that BlueSG operates.
A to A means you take the car and return the same place.
Yes,
right?
That's right. So it's a round trip service. Typically, how users use your service is that they will have a GetGo car within 5 minutes walk of where they live. I think in 80% of all HDB car parks, you can find a GetGo.
Nice.
Right. So you book it, you rock out to the car. All you need is the app to pick up the car. And typically our users use it for, 4 hours, half a day, right? It could be a trip to the zoo. It could be a trip to the movies, or in some cases, maybe a trip to the clinic. And after they do what they do, they return home and they return the car back to the same location where they picked it up from. So that's what we call an A to A service.
So BlueSG's problems were that it does an A to B business model where you take the car and you can go to another location. You don't have to return it where you came from. And that led to all kinds of problems logistically, like congestion, not being able to get a vehicle and things like that. And also, one of the experts told me that the fact that they ran only EVs was also a problem. But obviously, GetGo seems to be doing something right. You guys are now the biggest car sharing platform in Singapore. So what have you guys done differently, and how do you think that makes a difference?
One factor definitely was timing. We saw the need for it really during the pandemic, where people were stuck at home, afraid to go out on public transport. And we thought that, hey, only car owners have that privilege and luxury. But we saw that actually car sharing is a great way to provide people that mobility. I think what made a difference for us was really to focus on convenience for the user. So that included things like not having a deposit, not having a membership subscription, and really making it very easy for people to give it a try. I think the other thing about convenience, of course, is around locations. And that's where we believe bigger is better. I think we have a wide network of locations and we keep improving that over time as well. I think the second thing is really around flexibility, the ability to use the car for as little as 1 hour and as long as 5 days really helps provide for a variety of use cases for users and their families.
Right. But it must have been quite difficult to get to, that level of user friendliness, because you can't just start out. Your capital expenditure is going to be high. You have to rent the lots where you put the cars in.
Yeah.
How did you guys manage that?
Yeah. We didn't get here overnight as well. So I think we really let the demand from our community guide us. So one of the things that we did in the very early days, which we still have now, is we have a location request form. And we still get like hundreds of requests, on the weekly basis.
So they're asking you where?
They're asking us to put the cars, right?
And you
So
guys are, right.
So that's one
right,
factor.
right.
So I think we let demand lead us. I think the other factor, of course, is just having an app.
Yeah.
If you look across
Yeah,
the
yeah,
world,
yeah, yeah.
back in 2020, 2021, there were still car sharing players that didn't have an app.
Which is kind of unthinkable.
Which is kind of
now.
unthinkable,
Yeah,
right?
If not, how would you do it?
And that really goes back to timing, because technology is really part of the magic that makes this service work.
I mean, I recall back in the day, the old car sharing service, how do you find out whether the car is there? You got to call them, and even then the info may not be right. And so it's all about removing pain points, I suppose.
Yes, it's really removing pain points and friction. So no down payment, no subscription. Even fuel, we designed our service to be fuel included. So imagine if fuel wasn't included, if you took the car for an hour, within that hour, you have to visit a petrol station. Even the sign-up process, we were one of the first to use SingPass as a method of verification.
Oh, really? Nice.
So that you didn't have to submit a photo of a driver's license, you didn't have to submit papers. So we really made it really, really accessible.
That's all the nitty-gritty stuff and the small stuff, which makes the process better. But what about the macro thing? So like one of the experts told me, Singapore is kind of against private cars as transport by default. I mean, they want everyone to take the train, they want them to take the bus. If you want to drive a car, you got to pay through your nose. And it kind of clouds the long-term prospect of any car-related service. What do you say to that?
I would say that actually mobility has a variety of use cases. And I think using the car as a mode of transport has its place. When it's raining, when you need to go to many different places, when you have a family of 5. But I think what the government is perhaps trying to move away from is individual car ownership, because individual car ownership is inefficient. So if you look at the statistics, individually owned cars tend to be only used 10 to 15% of the time.
Most of the time it's parked.
Most of the time it's idle. So I think what we have done is really to make it much more efficient, such that one car can serve 20 families a month instead of just one.
So you're in agreement with Jeff Xiao about series.
I
it's
think
not a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very logical and very pragmatic approach.
And I think the key is to use technology to convert what used to be a one-to-one private good into a one-to-many shared service.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we come to my favorite 3 letters, COE. Yeah. And so, people always like the bogeyman, private hire car fleets are driving up COEs, therefore I can't own a car, therefore I must use the service, and so on forevermore. What do you say to that?
I think if you look at it from a long-term system perspective, if we can provide a car sharing service that serves 20 families adequately, these families will have no longer a need to own a car full-time. So actually, we do think that in the long term, if we do our jobs well, demand for individual ownership will come down.
Very logical. Are you sure you're not from the Ministry of Transport?
No. I mean, they're great partners to work with.
Okay, thanks, Ting Feng. We're coming to our break, but when we come back, car sharing's future in Singapore, and would you sublet your car, rent your car to pay for your own rental? Are you confused yet? Crazy idea, or just #Singapore things? All this and more when we come back.
Breaking news from the Business Times podcast team.
Hi guys, this is Emily Liu, your host of Market Focus Daily. I've got some great news. Come July, Market Focus is getting bigger. I'll be bringing in market and investment experts into the studio to share analysis and opinions on what moved the markets and what to look out for in the week ahead. Every Friday, starting on July 4th.
Look out for Market Focus Weekly from the Business Times or wherever you get your podcasts.
And now, back to TransportBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Okay, you're back with TransportBT, and I've got car sharing platform GetGo's head honcho Ting Feng with us to yak about the future of car sharing. But first, let's get down to something I've always wondered. So one of the other experts told me when I asked them about BlueSG, for example, that one of their problems was it's just easier to get a ride-hailing ride, right? You just rock up your app. You don't have to look for a car. You don't have to make sure the car is there. You don't have to return the car. So what is your response to that car sharing versus ride-hailing?
Yeah, so I think car sharing and ride-hailing are complementary. Ride-hailing is great last minute and on demand because the taxis and the ride-hail cars are floating around waiting to pick up passengers. But there are many other use cases where that may not be the most efficient, convenient, or even affordable approach.
Oh, okay.
So for example, if you're going to multiple places, I'm visiting Toa Payoh, and then I'm visiting Woodlands, and then I'm visiting somewhere else. It may make more sense to have a car that is with you and ready for you. Another example is you have kids, you need a car seat, and you want to leave the car seat in the car as you go about your day as well. So again, having a car persisting with you does have a lot of merits. And of course, last but not least, sometimes, point-to-point services have surge pricing. So there's also the uncertainty of pricing as well. And if you know that you're going to go about your day doing certain errands, I think that certainty of price and availability does really support a better use.
All right. So slightly longer usage.
Longer, multiple stops. You need to keep stuff with you as well. So if you're going to, IKEA, for example, which is one of our top places, or even if you're going camping.
Camping. Didn't think about that.
East Coast Park, best place to spot a GetGo. Guarantee you spot 10 a day.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really? Cool. Looking at the future again, car sharing also needs to balance sustainability and with its existing pressures. How do you guys do that? I mean, we looked at BlueSG and one of their problems was EVs and charging times and charging stations. And you guys have actually started using EVs. How has that worked for you?
Yeah, so I think, using EVs has worked well for us. But I think that our starting point is that sustainability isn't as simple as EV versus non-EVs.
Okay.
I think the fundamental principle is around the efficient use of resources. We already have these cars, they are already manufactured. So we really want to get as many people using them as often as possible.
Right.
But of course, at the same time, where we can, we want to make each car itself more sustainable in the operations as well. And that's why we have invested in converting 10% of our fleets to EVs and supported by all the different charging networks.
Do people have to charge the EVs before they return them?
So how it works is that if you return the EV on a low charge, so they can simply return it to the charging point, plug it in, click a couple of buttons on the app, and you just leave it there and you go back home. So you don't have to monitor it.
Okay. And, I talked about Jeff Xiao just now, our acting transport minister. He kicked off a whole avalanche of announcements about AVs, that's autonomous vehicles. How do you think this might affect GetGo? Will you guys be an autonomous shuttle provider next time? The car's going to drive itself.
Yeah, I think AVs are really exciting. And we definitely think that in the medium term, AVs will become a reality. And I think that's really exciting for us. So we're monitoring developments very closely. I think at the end of the day, someone needs to manage, own, and operate these AVs. And then the question is, who should do it? We do see ourselves as being in a good position to make that transition when the time comes. Yeah.
Because you guys are already operating a fleet that doesn't drive itself. You don't have to provide the driver.
That's right.
Okay, so we come to the more long-term rentals, which you guys just announced, the service called ZipZap. And that's a minimum of 6 monthly car rental that doesn't have a down payment. And one of the interesting things about that service was you have the ability to rent out the car that you're renting. So how does that work and how did you come up with the idea actually?
Great question. I think as we are serving our community of hourly car sharing and daily car sharing, we realized that there was a segment that for whatever reason, really needed to use the car more intensely.
Okay.
So we really put our heads together to see how we can do a more flexible version of car rental, a more seamless version of car rental. And I think one of the biggest challenges around car rental is that people, even though they rent a car and they need it quite often, there will be periods of time, for example, if they go on a holiday where the car is sitting idle. So with our technology and our existing community of hourly car sharing users, we can then allow our subscribers, when they choose to put up their car for sharing to help offset subscription fees as well. And that really makes it even more accessible for families that don't want to bear the full cost, of a car.
And, looking at all the data that you guys have as a car sharing platform and now the usage patterns from ZipZap as well, can you see really that car ownership really is changing from the old model where you just down payment, loan, buy the car and you drive it to becoming like cars as a service? Do you think that is going to be the future in Singapore next time?
Yeah, I think it will be an increasing part of the future. I don't think we will replace car ownership anytime soon. I think there are a few macro trends. First of all, people are getting more financially savvy and conscious, and they want to make their hard-earned income go a longer way. So the desire for more flexible options is definitely growing. The other thing is that with prices being elevated, with public transport getting better, the need to really use a car every day is progressively going down. So we see more opportunities to grow the sharing and the subscription share in the market.
So GetGo has been expanding, but you guys need to go further, right? So what are your targets there? And are you going to, I don't know, target new markets? Or are you going to eventually go for an IPO?
So we're very happy that, in the last year, we managed to turn a profit last year.
A small profit, right? Yeah.
Yes, a small profit, yes. And I think our philosophy is that we want to go after sustainable growth. I think looking ahead for us, we are looking at how we can expand the type of needs that we can serve in the community. And one of the effort is really launching ZipZap. Of course, at the right time, we will also look at how we can bring our learnings and our experience to different markets overseas. But
Okay.
I think that will be maybe a bit more down the road.
What's your time frame for that?
I would say maybe closer to the next 1 to 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your first market overseas?
That's a great question. I think, for many Singaporean startups, the answer would be Southeast Asia. But I think for us, where we bring value are cities that are like Singapore. Highly dense cities, great investment in public infrastructure for transport. Also, unfortunately, with a high cost of living. All right. So where things are expensive, it makes more sense to share. Most likely, it will be beyond Southeast Asia.
Right.
So it
right.
could be
Interesting.
in markets like, Australia, Japan, Korea, even further ashore as well.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense for you to go to somewhere where everyone has a Perudua for, 5,000 ringgit.
That's right. And it's also whether you have an alternative.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because
yeah.
if you don't have an MRT like ours, you will have to own a car.
That really does show GetGo's thinking. Like you guys operate as a
complement
to public transport
That's
service.
right. We're not trying to replace or be the main mode of transportation.
Yeah, good quote.
Yeah.
So thanks, Ting Feng. Thanks for all the insights on how you grew GetGo from a newcomer to the biggest actually car sharing platform in Singapore, and now launching the new rental service ZipZap as well. So thanks for all your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Cool, no problem. Next week, BT correspondents will be talking to the Singapore Land Authority about what it's like being Singapore's biggest landlord. So do check that out. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
This is a podcast by the Business Times. Find more BT podcasts at businesstimes.com.sg/podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.